Welcome to the Carl Vibe Show and podcast. I have a really cool guest today, Vinnie Adams. I'm going to go ahead and bring him right in. We've been friends for quite a while now on the UFO podcast, internet scene, bringing all kinds of cool guests onto our shows. But one thing I'm really impressed with Vinnie about is you've recently been out in the field, man, doing actual work, filmography, going out, making videos, and actually witnessing interesting phenomena. So welcome, Vinny. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, man. It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure to join you, man.
You bet. And it's been like a long time coming. We've been back and forth on different shows, and you've had like a ton of guests over on your podcast. So before we get into like some of what you've been doing with your film project and everything that's been going on down in South America in Colombia, I'm really curious about that. Like, what got you started in this whole UFO topic and the disclosure team and forming all that up? How did you get started in all this?
I suppose it's like a lot of people, it goes back to childhood when I grew up with Star Wars and sci-fi and things like that. My father was an avid sci-fi, and he was a movie fan in general, to be honest. But that, obviously caught my attention. The first movie I saw at the movies was E.T. Extraterrestrial, and so it was always, interested. I was always interested in it. But then, I guess, I got through my teens and my 20s skateboarding and partying a lot. That was kind of my thing. But then, settling down in life a little bit more, I just found myself really interested in the kind of esoteric and paranormal, anything strange and mysterious. And so I was watching an awful lot of documentaries, which then led on to the UFO subject and finding declassified documents and the archives, that you can access online. And so I spent probably a decade researching, just privately, spending late nights just in front of a screen, just completely mesmerized by the stuff that I was reading. But then obviously a couple of years ago, with everyone having to stay at home due to that thing that happened, I needed to fill my time a bit more. So, I started putting myself out there on social media, not really expecting anything to come of it. It was more a place where I could just put things that I was interested in, and I just put it online, and it just started gaining momentum very quickly. And I kind of, after a couple of months, had to take a step back and say, I could do something with this. I've just got to be prepared to put in the work. And that's what I did. And yeah, before I knew it, I was spending 40 plus hours a week doing it, which has now increased to probably about 60 hours a week. And here we are, man. So yeah, it's exciting.
It's really taken off. And you've had some pretty amazing high level, intriguing guests and associates and everything come over onto your podcast and show. Who are some of the more maybe notable ones that surprised you that came over there, and maybe what they shared with you that surprised you? I know you've had Lou Elizondo on there and a couple of other really intriguing, high-profile people. I'm really curious about how that all came about.
Again, it was not something I ever imagined myself doing, was hosting a podcast or even a YouTube channel. But there was a few people saying, maybe you should add that to your bag of tricks. And I was just like, I'm just so bad in front of a camera. I just don't see. It makes me cringe. But eventually, I caved in and went ahead with it. And yeah, I got some pretty high profile guests quite quickly just by some of the connections I'd made in the community. And but there's some of the people that really stood out to me who may not be sort of on that higher level are people like Erling Strand, who covered the Hessdalen phenomena since the 80s, the mysterious lights that have been spotted out there. Good to see some familiar faces in here as well. Hey guys.
Yeah, I'm just shouting out the chat real quick, but yeah,
nice to see people.
The Hessdalen lights too, and I want to talk about that a lot more, about your trip to Colombia too, because it seems really related to a lot what I'm experiencing at the Magic Mesa site, as well as what you're catching down there in Colombia, and how it fits in with Skinwalker Ranch and the whole big picture that I think people need to realize is a global phenomenon that seems to be connected with not only UFOs or UAPs in the sky and in the ocean, but it comes down into the paranormal realm, it seems, as well, into these communities and back into the oral traditions of the locals as well. So we're going to get into a lot of that. And we haven't had a chance because the two of us have been super busy doing independent stuff on different sides of the world, running around and kind of similar paths. And I've ended up down here in southern Utah and around Skinwalker Ranch, and you're down in Colombia, but you got started all online and interviewing a lot of interesting people, and they were going about the talking about these different topics and kind of sucked you in. So let's see, you had like Lou Elizondo and some of these people, and so has your opinion of the topic shifted? That's an interesting question, I think, because like a lot of people start in this and they're just curious about the governmental conspiracy, flying saucers and secret tech, and then suddenly it starts to change their life. So has any of that happened with you?
100%, absolutely. I came in this from the researching the documents. It's a very nuts and bolts kind of background. It, like you say, it's government, it's technology, it's physical objects. But then, making connections in the community over the past couple of years, meeting a lot more people who are kind of on the other side of things. Call it what you want. You can call it the woo side. I don't mind, spiritual side. And it really started opening my eyes to things. And so, I took all that on board, and I have seen more and more connections between, different and various aspects of the phenomenon, that it all kind of does intertwine and connect. And I'm just rolling with it, until things are proven or disproven. I'm keeping a lot more of an open mind. So yeah, it's great. It's really good.
Do you feel like talking with your guests, like and interviewing them on your show, which everybody who hasn't checked that out needs to go over to Vinnie's Disclosure Team podcast, because he's had so many amazing interviews on there that you can glean from. But like, do you feel like that has been kind of what has helped shape your mind there, is what in talking with these people you've realized, wait, like this isn't so fringe? Because that's sort of what I experienced, like when I was up at Skinwalker Ranch and I'm having a conversation with the head scientist there, with Eric Bard, and I'm talking about energy and consciousness, and he's like, why don't you just use the word, it's chi, you're talking about chi energy for meditation. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, it's unusual for me to be among like high level intellectual people or scientists or people coming out of the government, but they're willing to talk about all this stuff a lot more openly than I thought. So is that what you realized too, like these conversations, it was more broad, even talking with the experts?
Absolutely. The thing is that really I found helped even more is off camera, before interviews and after interviews. A lot of my guests I'm still in touch with on a fairly regular basis. We've formed connections and we talk an awful lot, and they help me out with, I do a lot of work away from social media and YouTube and stuff on cases. And, I don't like to sort of scream and shout about that, because it's always a case of, if you're halfway through investigating something, I don't want to tease or be accused of hyping something when there's no conclusions to them. You just got to keep the work going. And this is where I get a lot of help from these people that have been on my show, or they've put me in touch with other people they know that can maybe help me out as well. So that's been just so valuable to everything I've been doing. So yeah, definitely the off-camera moments. And even with people like Lou Elizondo, some of the conversations you have away from public are fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it's almost like when the cameras come on, or it gets more official, or when the actual official work, it's like there's a zone that kicks in. You have to like almost follow particular protocol or rules. But it's very interesting when you get more personal, or when you get aside, or when the conversations that I've had, like with like Chris Bartell and James Keenan and half of the Skinwalker team, we were like clear up in the mountains by a waterfall down in a cave, and then it suddenly occurs to us, and we're looking around, we're like, no one can listen to what we're saying. We're like, okay, let's talk. And we have these big conversations, but you have to pick your moments where you feel like you're even free to share and know your company, which is another thing, is like this, the community around this topic seems a lot of times really divided on the internet, and there can be a lot of that like infighting and lying and just crazy storytelling. And do you get sent like a lot of stuff and encounter a lot of that too, just like messiness and false claims and people swearing that they have evidence and it's just nothing? And like I'm curious what it's been like for you with that.
Yeah, I have it all the time. At first, I found it quite difficult to deal with. I didn't, sometimes personal attacks were coming from people that had never even met me, and you just, you want to retaliate, and then you realize that it doesn't help. And nowadays, I just ignore it. I could be accused of sitting in an echo chamber sometimes, but there's a difference. I'm really open to differences of opinion, but what I'm not open to is people just purposefully going after people and demanding things. A lot of people feel like they're owed something, and a lot of the times they're not.
Hmm.
I'm not talking about the grand conspiracy of humanity's owed the answers if say the government are keeping secrets. Maybe in that case we're owed something, but it's like people just, I don't know. I find it
Hmm.
hard to understand or comprehend sometimes the angle that people are coming from. But I do just try and focus and rise above, and let people get on with that stuff away from me. Really, I don't have the time either. I'm
Right.
too busy. Too
Yeah.
busy.
And the truth is, I found for myself, it's like a lot of the heaviest critics and the people who, they're not even really trying to criticize in a constructive way where they're trying to help you think about a topic philosophically or think around it with like helpful questions. They're just kind of attacking you and trying to put down what you're doing or come in with their opinions really strong. And that's so fascinating to me. And it's just like anything else. It's like if somebody's really like attacking guns, for example, it's usually because they know nothing about it and they haven't ever handled them very much. They don't go out and they're not familiar. They don't hang around people that are used to it. And it's the same with people who are maybe like racist or prejudiced towards a certain group. They've just never traveled to that country or met the people and really opened up their eyes to it. And that's what like I see you doing. That's amazing. Why like I'm drawn to surround myself with like friends like you is because you actually not only sit and do the research at home and you talk to the people and the experts, but then you also stay skeptical to all of it and go look for yourself, which is the biggest thing. Because that cuts through all of it like a knife. Like it's people can sit and criticize all they want, but you can sit back and rest on your laurels because you're like, I know, I've been there and I've been there myself. And the criticisms just seem really petty and foolish at that point because they just don't, they're a lot of times the coming from a place of total ignorance, even about the terrain or the geology or the logistics of what it takes to even go to an actual place. And that's what you've been doing. Like you just recently went to Colombia, where there's been this long-standing, thousands of year phenomena of these lights that appear on the side of this mountain, which is the mountain that you've got behind you on the wallpaper behind you. That's pretty cool, man. That's really cool. So tell us about this. Like, how did you find out about this phenomena down in Colombia and get hooked up with all that? I'm really fascinated.
So I was contacted last year it must have been springtime 2021, by an Instagram page called UAP Colombia. Now, we communicated for quite some time, and it was just a nice account. I didn't know the name or the face behind the account, but we stayed in touch, and he would regularly post a lot of strange pictures from this area behind me of strange lights on the mountain. And after a while, we got onto some Zoom calls, and I realized who this guy was. It's Ashley Cowie, who is a documentarian filmmaker who's done many shows for the Travel Channel and history and stuff in the past, looking at not
Hmm.
just UFOs. In fact, his background is more archaeological and strange things in general. And we were just talking for months, and he's like, I really want to investigate this phenomena. And he lives literally in front of that mountain now in Colombia. He's actually from Scotland originally, but he married his wife, who's from Colombia, and they live out there. So yeah, after months and months of talking, he towards the end of last year, he said, "Right, it's happening. Let's do it." And so I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And it all happened so quickly. We had to get the flights booked, and he got this amazing, like, 100-year-old Colombian mansion rented where we could stay, and he brought this whole team together from different parts of the world. And yeah, before we knew it, we were flying out in early February of this year for 2 weeks to get stuck in and get boots on the ground, you know. And it was incredible. And now I'm hooked. I just want to do it again and again.
That's amazing. Yeah, so it's not even something in your backyard. This is something where you went on like a real adventure. So how did you even think at the beginning to prepare, like what gear to take? Were you like scratching your head like, do I take night vision or whatever? Because for me, this is an ongoing struggle. Like what, depending on where I'm going and how long and what the terrain requires and whether I'm going to be staying after dark and all of that stuff is a whole different logistical puzzle every time that I go. But this is totally foreign to you. So what did you take with you and how did you get prepared?
So initially, we knew that this was quite an elusive phenomena, and one thing that Ashley had done is he'd photographed it a few times at the same time in February of the previous year. So we felt like if that was the point where these lights were showing themselves more, then we should mimic that and do it in the February of this year. But we knew that the initial investigation had to start from scratch because, you know, we couldn't just try and attempt to raise lots of money and go out there with all sorts of expensive equipment and then just not see anything. You know, it was a lot of it came out of our own pockets. You know, I don't have any fancy equipment. So the aim really was to go out for 2 weeks and do an initial investigation with the possibility of a repeat returning trip to continue it. So, you know, one thing we did have was some quality camera equipment. And so, you know, we had that set up 24/7 for the whole time we were there, just ready in case this phenomena presented itself to us. So, you know, we were confident that if that happened, we would at least capture some high definition footage. So initially that was the kind of the basics. There would be a lot of interviewing locals, looking at the history, a lot of climbing. You know, the mountain you see behind me is the main mountain where these lights appear. But across the valley is like a sister mountain, and they both sit in different geological areas. One is highly positively charged, and the other is highly negatively charged. And you know, there are historical accounts of this light flying between the two. So, you know, we don't have any kind of high tech geological analysis equipment, so we had to kind of lay out this basic investigation initially. So that's kind of how it went, and it was incredible. We did capture some incredible footage.
You did.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I can't say too much because the series is 5 episodes in at the moment. It's been releasing weekly over on the Phenomenology Vimeo page, and
I've actually got that up here right now. Is this if we were on a late night talk show, this would be the part where like, Vinny, you say you've brought a clip along to show our folks here. Right?
So two of the episodes that are out, we were presented with a strange blue light video that a local had filmed. And so part of the trip we spent investigating that specific case as well as, you know, trying to look at the bigger picture, because this whole valley, it's steeped in it. Every house and every person you go to has a story they want to tell. So so this trailer you've got here is for episode 4, which then does lead into episode 5, the case. But yeah, feel free to play it. It might be worth putting it on the larger screen.
Go like this. Yeah, let's try it. Dude, I just got chills. Got a little lag. Let me start. Here we go. Phenomenology, guys. The real deal. Holy smokes. Dude, so Vinny, Colombia, phenomenology, there is this light phenomenon that you guys actually were able to capture footage of. It's going back and forth between these mountain ranges in Colombia, and the oral tradition goes back a long ways. And that's a piece of it that I've been chomping at the bit to like ask you about. So is there like petroglyphs and or pictographs, ancient carvings or runes or anything like that around the phenomenon that indicate that this has been going on for a long time?
Yeah, so there are records in the local archives dating back 400 years that catalogue the phenomena. There are writings about it. But yeah, in that valley, there are petroglyphs upon smaller, on the side of the valley, but not on the high peaks. So we visited that as well. Spoke to local historians about the petroglyphs. And I do believe that, from what we heard, that this has been going on for a lot longer than the 400 years. A lot of the traditions kind of die out because they weren't written down, but some of the petroglyphs are, I think, a lot older than that. There's a lot of stuff, the conquistadors were in this area when they invaded and stuff, so there's a lot of connection to that historically as well. So the story, like the overall story, is just so deep and so just steeped in strange phenomena and historical religion as well. The local religions of the tribes, the ancient tribes that lived in the valleys, who were pretty much wiped out by the conquistadors. The mountain you see behind me, as the conquistadors were finally kind of taking over, the remaining a couple of hundred of the Muisca tribes, they jumped from the peak down this flat face to commit suicide. And so there's a lot of tradition and people that say that the lights on the mountain are the spirits of the Muiscas. So depending who you speak to, they may say that it's the spirits. Someone else across the valley will say, oh no, it's UFOs. But everyone has an opinion and wants to talk about it there.
Well, the landscape and the cinematography of the project of Phenomenology is just amazing, breathtaking. It seems like just a mind-blowing place to even go visit, but then to have all of that there is so intriguing and fascinating. What are you've probably seen some of my YouTube videos and watched like Ancient Aliens and the petroglyphs and things up around Skinwalker Ranch and such. How do they compare, would you say, or what are the carvings like? Are they similar at all? Are they figures of like anthropomorphic people with horns and similarly, or are they completely different in style and type?
I think there is some slight differences, but then again, sometimes you do come across the odd thing that you probably have seen, say on Ancient Aliens or something, spirals and things like that. Because again, other people in this area, they say that it's a portal at the top of the mountain. So you do see, and obviously anthropomorphic figures are everywhere. So yeah, I'd love to. I do plan on going back out there in 2023 to do the next sort of phase of the investigation and film for season 2, as it were. And so I'd like to speak to people who are probably a bit more versed in the history of the petroglyphs and stuff, to come at it from that angle next time.
Yeah, kind of get the ancient history. What is the story is that there was people that jumped off the cliff and the locals kind of feel like it's a sacred place, like their
Yeah.
souls or spirits are with the lights going back and forth. Very fascinating. I know that you mentioned, and I'm not a geologist either, but is there any speculation about it being like I always say this wrong, piezoelectric effect, like crystal compression or the geology creating lights, like the Hestilin lights? They've questioned that a lot. Whether or not the geology and the compression of the way the tectonic plates or the mountain range moves creates like these plasma balls or glowing energy balls. But I'm curious what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, that's actually probably my top hypothesis, that this is some kind of strange earth light. Of course, I'd love it to be something a lot more mysterious, like UAP related or some other kind of, strange phenomena. But from what I've seen so far and the people we spoke to, I have a rational way of thinking. And I do believe it's probably more likely based on the geological makeup of the area. to be something caused by the geology and stuff like that. But to me, even if it is, that's still something extremely rare and extremely interesting that can still help, science and things like that, because it's a strange phenomena, whatever it is.
Describe a little bit what people say like lights, and that's hard to convey what it actually appears or looks like. Can you kind of give us a description or tell me like what when you say like a light, is it like an orb or is it like shapes of light? Is there balls of light or what? Can you describe it for us? What did it look like? What colors?
I can actually probably show you some images if you just bear with me. Yeah, if I can.
Yeah, for sure.
Bear with me. I won't show it. Where is it?
I'm going to go through some of the comments section here. Everybody, thanks for joining. Everybody, Paranormal Pixilera, JT Parker, how's it going, Benji? Everybody's over in the chat. I saw Unidentified Celebrity Review was here a little bit ago.
Good to see everyone. I'm sorry, man. I had these ready earlier and I've completely lost them.
It's all good.
Come on.
It's actually nice just to have a laid back show. I've been doing the UFO disclosure symposium stuff, and I was doing like 3 or 4 interviews a day, but they were just like 15, 20 minutes long. But each one of them was like with like Avi Loeb or Travis Taylor and everybody. So I was like, I actually, by the time the symposium was over, so done with like podcast interviews for a while. I just wanted to get away from my computer. But this is kind of my first one back actually running the show. It's kind of cool.
Right, I found them. Here we go. So
I find it so fascinating that we're starting to see the same sort of formula appear between the research that I'm doing, stuff going on up in the Uinta Basin around Skinwalker Ranch, and then now we've got Colombia. It's very like a similar set of things where you have the ancient oral tradition. You've got ancient petroglyphs and evidence there of this existing for maybe thousands of years going on. You have compelling geological formations that seem to amplify the phenomenon or be correlated with it. And then it's tied right into a lot of interesting stuff with government involvement and research. And maybe we can ask about that in a minute too. But
absolutely.
That's fascinating.
Here's just a selection of photographs that were taken in 2020 by Ashley. And they're all vastly different, all strange shapes, with a lot of colors in them. It's not doing a good job of showing them that they kind of spit out of the mountain at different areas.
Oh, wow.
That's a bit small.
So they look just like almost like a welding light just emanates out and flies around?
Yeah, look at that one there. See how that's just strange, like really weird. I mean,
so weird. So yeah. So that one's red.
So you can see it there. Yeah. So here's the main peak, kind of in the middle there, and then so these are coming right off the side, and there's very little access for a person to get to these mountains. We climbed to the top of this peak. There is one path that leads up the side of that flat face. So. And the mountain is closed to the public at nighttime. In fact, when we were there, it was closed permanently anyway. We had to get police permission and police escort onto the mountain.
Really?
So I tell you now, if anyone attempt to climb that in the nighttime, good luck to them. It's so dangerous. There are no clear paths. You're climbing half of the time. It is brutal. So for anyone that says, "Oh, it's just someone with a torch," we obviously we've been through all that. We've done the work, the analysis, and it's not that I can say.
Yeah, so. It's like it doesn't make sense. It would be like somebody flying a drone around up there. You were saying it's almost like you went back like an annual event. Does it seem like it's almost like scheduled or something? Like it follows a pattern, or is that hit and miss?
That time of February is a season change, so it comes into it comes out of the kind of dry, muggy season into a bit more of a rainy season. And towards the end of the trip, when I was there, we were driving through the valley, and I turned and I said to Ashley, I said, the air feels different today. It genuinely felt completely different. and there is thunder and lightning across those peaks all the time, and it's intense, and it's a spectacle. So
Yeah.
it's so highly charged around there. It's amazing.
Makes you wonder. That's one of the things that I've been researching around the Uinta Basin and Skinwalker Ranch with like James Keenan and Chris Bartell and those guys is this theory or the idea that Brandon Fugel's also very interested in with owning Skinwalker Ranch is doing this kind of independent collaborative research where we're investigating similar stuff. Like I saw in the preview of the next episode coming up, you guys are looking in caves underground and doing a lot of that too, looking for geological
Yeah,
explanations and historical ones as well. Because you have these big sinkholes and aquifers and geological fault lines and crystal systems and stuff, formations and things where you just really don't know the combination of elements could form almost like a battery effect within the geology or the mountain that glows or creates all kinds of phenomena that could bleed into the community and affect human consciousness and stuff. So, is there stories of that too, like paranormal things associated with the lights or shadow figures and things associated? What's the story with the community? Is it like Skinwalker Ranch and similar in that sense?
there have been a few stories similar to that. I suppose, as well as people suggesting that this is UFOs, there's a lot of the religious side with Mary, the apparition and
Hmm.
things like that. That a lot of people think that it's something related to that, and that's highlighted everywhere you go in all the small towns and villages. It's
Hmm.
there's these amazing pieces of artwork of like the mountain, but then people have either put a UFO or the Virgin Mary floating above it. So there's so many different aspects depending on who you talk to. So I think when we go back out, we'll keep looking
Hmm.
into it and interviewing different people and looking at these different angles. Certainly, because we don't want to ignore one thing. We want to, do as much as we can, and eventually, hopefully, start ticking things off. Next time we go out, we're hoping to take out scientific equipment to move it on to the next phase of investigation. So, when we were out there about halfway through the trip, we were lucky enough to get on a Zoom call with Lou Elizondo and Sean Cahill to ask for advice on if they had any thoughts on the investigation. We told them what we'd done so far and what else we wanted. Did they think we should do? And Lou suggested, you need to go and speak to religious leaders in the area and things like that, and just get as much information as you can, because the more data you've got, then the more possibilities and chances of getting down to the nitty gritty and solving something. So yeah, it was just amazing.
Yeah, so the locals they really associate it with like their belief system or Mary. Do they? Is there reports of like sightings and things like that in the community and stuff a lot? Really,
Absolutely, yeah.
really.
Sightings of if you think about Christopher Bledsoe and his sighting of the lady, there are cases very similar to that.
Yeah,
But we've also, like I said, we also spoke to people who said, there are cases of saucers landing and beings getting out, like your
really.
stereotypical alien landing, grays and stuff. So it's everything.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so fascinating to me is that as you dig into this, it feels like it goes, it crosses all those boundaries, and it makes me wonder how much of it is the phenomenon itself like actually representing that, or does the energy per se of the phenomenon amplify us or our human consciousness? Like, so let's say you're in an area where there's a lot of Native American tradition and history, like Skinwalker Ranch, and then suddenly you're seeing things like wolves and dogmen and Native American themed apparitions because the historical setting is sort of primed to be that way. And I wonder if the phenomenon like helps you glimpse through different timelines, or if it causes a glitch in timelines, or if it somehow warps our perceptions to where we're seeing through into the past or into other weird dimensions of reality. But it's interesting that there's a theme of Catholicism or Mother Mary there, whereas up at Skinwalker Ranch, you've got Skinwalker stuff. It's completely different based on the setting. So I wonder how much of it has to do with the witnesses and consciousness, and that's kind of where we started, is how much it goes from like nuts and bolts to relating to us as humans and our own perceptions. What are your thoughts on that?
I imagine that it does have a substantial amount to do with it. It's I think sometimes it's how these people make sense of what they're seeing, whether it's them interpreting it a certain way, or whether, like you said, it could be the phenomenon itself presenting itself as something familiar to them. It's actually
Right.
altering their mind or their vision to see something that they would be comfortable seeing, or something that would make sense to them. So yeah, I mean, this is the thing. When I was before we went out there, I was worried that I was going to be so steeped in this thing that I would think that everything is a UFO, and I was worried about that. But when I was there, I was actually one of the most skeptical in the group,
Hmm.
and I surprised myself because I didn't want to misrepresent the UFO subject. I didn't want to misrepresent myself. I didn't want to come back from that trip and say, I wish I'd done this or not said that. So I was very methodical.
Yeah.
And so I surprised and pleased myself.
Interesting. Yeah, it's always really hard. Me and Chris and James, we talk about that too. We say we have to guard ourselves and check each other from getting skinwalker fever, where every little dust particle is an orb now, and if a twig snaps in the dark, you're like, that's a werewolf, and it's really easy to get in. It's almost like a cult mindset, or like there's like a fervor that I don't even know the word for it, or like a mindset that comes over the group to where everything starts to feel heightened or paranormal, and it's like, okay, a lot of this is just us chasing our own shadows around. We got to chill out. But I am curious, did any of you guys have any unique experiences, any shared dreams, or any unique sightings, or out of body stuff? Did you guys discuss any of that, or have any weird things happen? That is something that we talk about, like in my research, because of the hitchhiker phenomenon.
Yeah, we've had probably a lot more conversations since the trip. How there have been times where it feels like things have changed since the trip for some of us. Now, whether that is just simply because we actually went and did this big investigation, traveled halfway around the world, you kind of you might look at things a bit differently because it's got such a big thing to do. But then maybe not. Maybe there have been some conversations where it's been a bit more spiritual, let's say.
Hmm.
Maybe not so much for myself, and I don't want to say too much because it's not really my place to say what other people have talked to me about in private. But yeah,
Sure.
for sure, definitely, there's been a lot of strange conversations because when you're there and you're on those peaks and you're taking it all in, and you realize what you're actually doing, you can get these overwhelming feelings of something that you might not be used to feeling, and I
Hmm.
certainly had that, and I found it quite addictive. That's why I just want to keep doing more investigations in these strange places.
Yeah, it's like there is, like you said there, the day that you actually saw it and filmed it and everything, it's like you felt like the air was different. There's something strange, and when you get up to certain of these locations, you can sense it like a shift. I've been walking along like on a hike, kind of daydreaming in my own mind or thinking about like what video that I want to film, and suddenly get like almost a wave hit me, and I feel like I'm being watched, or like I've just trespassed, or whoa, where like something's weird. And then I'll start being very sensitive and looking around, and sure enough, I realize, wow, I've found something here, and it's very interesting. Or sometimes I'll just sit down and have like a meditation experience. But I think that's interesting. Like we don't trust that side of ourselves so much, and it's fascinating that as more of us are talking about this topic, it is going from UFOs to a more personal understanding of ourselves and how we fit into the picture, and how our own consciousness maybe interacts or fills in the gaps sometimes. And so I'm toying with this idea of like, which is it? Is it like, is the energy of the phenomenon, like, imagine if it was just like a flying saucer, right? Like a craft. Even the technology or the energy coming off of that craft, if it was like a time travel machine, the radiation coming off of that could totally make you see glimpses into other realms or into the past, or could bleed things through or have side effects that we just don't fathom, you know?
Yeah.
So it could be that, it could be our own consciousness and how reality works, or it could just be a geological thing. Like you could walk into an area on the earth that has a different electromagnetic frequency, and suddenly you're walking in there and having all kinds of effects. And so I find that interesting. I'm glad that you're experiencing that, because I'm hooked on it too. I go to these petroglyph sites and you feel something, and then you're like, now I just want to get it on the devices and everything. So let's talk about that. What are the plans? So now that you've gotten a taste of it, you want to go back. Are you going to be doing more stuff locally around some of the oral traditions in your region where you live, or are you just kind of like are going straight back to Colombia and focusing on that, or do you want to come to Utah and check this out?
Oh man.
I just want to throw
Many
it out there. What do
things.
you have coming up?
Well, I mean, after getting back from the trip, obviously I started researching a lot more of similar phenomena around the world, and I actually found a location that's only about 30 miles away from where I live in the north of England that has a history of light phenomena in a very small valley as well. So, I'd like to go out and camp out there. It's just a couple of hills next to a main road, so it's not as beautiful as kind of being in Colombia. But I want to be in these locations and experience them, even if I don't experience the phenomenon when I'm there. It says something about being there. You can take something away from it still. So yeah, I plan on doing that locally in this country. We do plan on trying to repeat the Colombia trip in February 2023 and take out some scientific equipment to hopefully see the phenomena again, but be able to get some measurements, some actual data measurements from it. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to go to the States, and Utah especially. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, man. I've been following Skinwalker Ranch for many years, way before Brandon Fugel and his ownership. It fascinates me. I'm very open to what it is that's there. So yeah, I'd love to experience that kind of environment. So, where you are, it's a bit more southern Utah, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
I'm
love
down
to
on the
go there.
southern end. Yeah. I'm kind of 2 hours east of Area 51 and west of the Grand Canyon and right by all of it, 4 hours from Skinwalker Ranch. And yeah, so here's what's interesting is I get asked this a lot, and I want to pick your brain about it. Now that you've talked to so many people, like you've had all these different guests on your show, and you've had private conversations off camera and made friends with people. Now you've gone out and become like an in-field researcher as well, an investigator. So now, where do you sit on all of this? Now that you've had all these conversations, you've talked to the people that are supposed to know what's going on. Uh, First of all, it's so hard to sift through the fog, right? And the head games revolving around it with some of these people and the stories they tell you. But what are your thoughts? Where are you at with all of it? What is it? Is it ultra terrestrials, interdimensional? Is it another planet? Like, what do you think? Where are you at now, Vinny?
This is the thing. Speaking to all these people and doing the stuff that I've done, it's kind of put more things on the table, more possibilities for me. So, I guess if some people might say, well, then that gives you more questions than answers. But the way I look at it is different. I don't worry about that. I'm not in a rush to find the answers. I want to be thorough in what I'm doing to help the subject. And we've waited 75 plus years, we can wait a bit longer, kind of thing. But years ago, it was, people were talking about it being extraterrestrial, and it was like, well, it's ET. Now, obviously, with crypto terrestrial and ultra terrestrial and interdimensional and time travel and all these other things cropping up, or for me at this moment in time, I think extraterrestrial has slipped right down that scale. That's,
Yeah.
it might change. This is one thing as well, is that I'm not afraid to change my mind based on where the evidence or data or even sometimes the conversations lead. So I'm very open-minded, and I'm going to remain open-minded, remain skeptical as well to some degree. But do I believe that there is an anomalous phenomena here on this earth? Yeah, I do. How much of that can I prove? Probably none. Is there a little bit of bias in there? Yeah. I'm only human. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at.
So let me get more specific then. Have you been shown things that you're not allowed to talk about? Have you been shown things and have been told things that you're not allowed to share? You don't have to share it because I have. Like I've been privy to things that I'm not allowed to talk about. That I don't know how to take it, but I'm just curious. Have you had that kind of experience already? Now, are you in
Oh,
that
yeah.
boat now? Okay.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult situation to be in, because
Yeah.
if someone was to say to me, do you want to see this? I'd go, yeah. But then, you can't talk about it as much as you want to talk about it. You are sworn to secrecy on certain things. Have I been shown the answers to this subject? No way, far from it. Have I been privy to some certain points of information that, will come out in the future? Oh yeah, definitely. So, it's a difficult situation to be in, because I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
It's hard to
I,
know.
I
Yeah.
can't say too much, because what can you say,
Right. And I like how you said it a minute ago too. It's like you have to just keep going forward. You can't get sucked into the drama and things. And the thing is, you have to be okay with, like you said, changing your mind and admitting when you realize that new information, That's what learning is. That's what development and growth is the ability to be like, "Oh, what I thought I knew was right is incorrect or partially wrong. Now I have new information. I'm going to update that and increase my knowledge." That's called learning. And instead of fighting that, this idea that I feel like you've tied your integrity to the truth. And so you're willing to walk through whatever in order to pick up those pieces of the truth as you go. But the thing is that what was true today, you realize is only partial tomorrow. And there's more to it as you go. And so you never can really sit down and feel like you know the answers or who's even telling you the truth. Because what's difficult too is like, do you feel like sometimes people will share things with you or hook you into things to a certain extent so you can't talk, and almost like you're on a leash? Have you felt like that, or have you been able to avoid that?
No, I think I've been done quite well to avoid that, to be honest. Yeah.
Me too. I feel like that's how I've gotten access to some of the places that I've been able to go and stuff, is because I've been able to stay independent of all that. Hey, thanks for this super sticker, by the way, Tammy. Really appreciate that a lot. By the way, $10 super sticker there. So appreciate that. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand some of the complications. Is we're playing in something that as a hobbyist is really fun to go out and look for UFOs with night vision. But on another level, it can be a dangerous game. And is a very serious game that involves very interesting people. And so I commend you how you've navigated it all, kept your integrity intact and tied to the truth. And yeah, that you're willing to admit it when you gain new information and keep going, because otherwise the community itself can just chew you up and spit you out,
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah. So do you feel like going back into this now, are you more prone to take equipment and scientific gear along the lines of paranormal research or along ufology research? So, or kind of a mixed bag?
Probably, yeah, it's a good question. I think because my focus mainly will be really the big picture of going back to Colombia to focus on that specific type of phenomena. I've been looking a lot at, the Hest Island lights and similar things like that. So, I've taken a leaf out of their book. Even yesterday, I was looking at the various pieces of equipment they've used over the years since the early 80s. And so, I'm not going to kid myself and say, right, I'm going to have one of them, and all this kit. I've got to be selective, budget. We're going to be on a budget. So I've got to think about what I want to take out there.
Here's a cheat too. Let me give you a little tip.
Bring it on.
You can invite one person like me that already has a lot of that stuff that they can just bring already with them. And you don't even have to pay for them to go. Right?
But this is the thing, man. We want, there'll be core members of the team there, but you know, it's kind of an open invitation. If people want to come along, come along. You just have to pay your way, kind of thing.
Oh, there you go.
I'd love to have you out there, brother. It'd be so much fun
I want to go.
learning, you know, bouncing ideas off you. It'd be a dream.
Yeah, leave
But
it to me to invite myself on your trip on a live show.
no, but I'm serious, man. That'd be incredible. Definitely, man.
No, it would be cool. But the photos and the evidence that you guys are capturing there, along with the whole set and the setting with the community and all that, is just incredible. So you've got that coming up at the beginning of the year, next year, and
Mm.
then what do you have coming up for your podcast and for your interviews? Really quick, thanks Laura for the super
Um,
sticker. So much
So
appreciate it.
I actually just released my August schedule today. So I have got coming up, I have got Bob Maguire coming up next as my next guest. So we're going to be talking about UAP and kind of national security, which I'm looking forward to. Oh, what's Lou asking? What was the best point of data or the you or Ashley's team came back with other than amazing photos? What science
Yeah, start
would you
throwing
like?
questions in the comments section now. So this is a good opportunity. We're here probably the next 10, 20 minutes going to wrap this up. So let's get Vinny your questions now for the show. So
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing that we were doing a lot is whenever we were flying the drone, we were we were mapping it, and then back at headquarters we were plotting it across geological maps as well, so we could see the mineral makeup of the valley and stuff. You know, we had, you know, I wasn't doing a lot of that. I was certainly looking at the data and stuff, but we had people a lot more whose expertise is this kind of thing, you know. But that's the kind of stuff that we were doing. Is the mountain near Medellin? No, it's 1 hour north of Bogota.
an hour north of Bogota. Okay,
Mm.
interesting. Yanni's here. Hi, Yanni. Any other questions? I'm rolling down through here. We had a bunch here earlier. Yeah, just asking. I think we covered a lot of it, bringing up lights in Brazil in 1977. You mentioned the Hessdalen lights and how that compares. Have you been able to talk to Paul Hynek about the lights or any of that? I should put you in touch with him. Do you have his
Yeah, please
information?
do. I
Okay,
don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, you should definitely have Paul look because he probably has a lot of information about similar phenomena that his father researched. He has a lot of his dad's notes, J. Allen Hynek stuff. So,
Oh, I'd love to
um,
speak to him, man. Yeah, hook me up. I need to start booking for September. So
right. Here's a question from Lara, Paranormal Pixie. Is there any samples of the soil taken? This is a question that I get a lot too, which is challenging because it's like right where the lights seem to be coming from, even at the like Magic Mesa area that I'm at, it's not anything like the mountain that you're dealing with. It's way smaller. And even getting up the face of that logistically and even politically is complicated, getting permits and stuff. So, you guys able to take any rock samples? Did you sneak anything back home?
the problem with that was that as you go up the mountain, there are so many different you know, it's a lot of it's clay, it's washed away by sort of rain and stuff. And if there's, you know, if it's something inside this face, there would be need to do some deep kind of core sample analysis. You know, again, this is something that we want to do going forward. You know, the initial investigation was really to get the lay of the land, to hopefully capture some footage, to interview the locals, to get the real big picture of the investigation. Then yes, we did look at the geological makeup using some online tools and some tools that were brought along by one of the experts. But you know, this is why season 2 or the second trip will be a lot more scientific sort of based.
Yeah, you kind of have to go to even see if what they're talking about is even there before you
Exactly.
go through all the trouble to even know what in the world to take or what you're looking at or if it's even real, you know. So some of that, it's like, am I going to really spend all the money to take all of this stuff and I don't even know if it's just folklore or not? Like, so yeah, you have to kind of know. It takes multiple trips and all that stuff. So here's a good question from Elena. How would you recommend people begin in their own backyard if they were going to start looking
That's a
into the phenomenon? That's
that's a
something
tough.
that I do. Maybe I could handle that question, but
I mean, it's a tough question. I think it's a very individual thing because where I'm based in Sheffield, in the north of England, I mean, there's one famous case from I think the 90s of a sighting in the countryside about 10 minutes from me. But other than that, there's never been anything. I mean, if I was to research literally in my backyard, I'd look at historical cases and maybe go to the sites and or speak to people that have investigated them before. You know,
Hmm.
it's that kind of thing. It depends where you are. Like where you are, Carl, you've got you can go to all these petroglyphs and all this ancient stuff. You know, I don't
Yeah.
have that, unfortunately. So I think it depends where you're at, but find out the history of your area when it comes to sightings and folklore as well. You know, so that'd
Yeah.
be my initial starting point.
I think there's pretty standard equipment. I think if you're going to try to get like a backpack of gear together to kind of make it worth your while to even go sit out overnight to look for something, just looking into different night vision equipment. I think Psionics has a good brand of night vision.
Yeah,
A tri-field meter, you can get those because those will detect like electromagnetic waves and radio frequencies, magnetic waves, different stuff. You can get an EMF sensor, a
yeah,
radiation sensor, all the ghost hunting equipment, but you just keep in mind that some of it's like pseudoscience and you just have to take it for what it is,
of
just like
course.
an indicator or whatever. But really taking other experienced people and getting a second witness along with that is really important too. So, yeah, that's a great question. Just get started with what you can afford because the equipment can go anywhere from $50 all the way up to, I mean, we had mineral scanning lasers that are like $35,000 for one device, that we
Yeah.
took up around Skinwalker Ranch trying to scan the geology there. It's crazy. But yeah, here's a good question from Benji. What's the advice that Lou and Sean gave you when you called them on your trip there?
I mean, I guess it kind of stems back to what we were saying earlier about how they advise us to go and speak to kind of cultural and religious leaders in the area, you know, because we're talking to the locals that live there now and maybe hearing their take on things and maybe their family history take on things, but the important figures. Uh, and that was a really good piece of advice because, you know, we'll do that. You know, there's only so much you can fit into, like, let's say 2 weeks, you know, when we're investigating the phenomena as a whole, but we're also investigating local cases, like, you know, trying to literally go to locations where videos were filmed. And, you know, it's a lot to fit into 2 weeks. So,
Yeah, it is, right? With everything going on, it's hard to cram it all in. Here's another good question from Lou. Did you guys get the opportunity to talk to Columbia University professors? What are the local authorities' opinions on it other than just the community? Did you get a chance to look into
that's
that?
a great question. We didn't actually on the trip, but in the months leading up to the trip, Ashley made a lot of connections with local academics and got a lot of quotes and leads from them. So if you watch the series, every sort of now and then you'll see the screen go black and a quote will pop up, and a lot of those quotes are from local university professors and military personnel in the area. So we have made contacts in the past, but we didn't meet anyone at that time on the trip. So yeah, we've kind of we've reached out to people like that. So, you know, they're really on board with the project as well. So, because we're going to be putting this all out in Spanish and it's going to be promoted in the local area.
Hmm.
Even the local mayor, you know, we spoke to him. Well, I say we actually spoke to him and kind of got the go ahead to, you know, we just got the blessing to do it because you know, he's got quite an in with the local community. So we were lucky to go to a lot of the locations, you know, to get on top of the mountain. You know, you can't just walk up it. You have to get police authorization, you know, and
Right.
tourists don't generally get that. It's because of Ashley living there and the connections he's made over the years that we were able to do that. So, you know, we were blessed in that respect.
Yeah, that sounds amazing because usually, like, what I've seemed to run into is either a lot of like, no, we don't want you trespassing or don't go there, or like the local authorities or even like the tribal councils, they're just not interested at all. They're more worried about other planning and zoning things and other stuff rather than chasing lights around. And so that's really refreshing to hear that they're actually interested in it. It seems like something that they've dealt with for a while.
But this is the thing, they've never had anybody out there actually trying to get to the bottom of what's been seen there for hundreds of years. So I think they were just like, they made us feel so welcome and almost thankful, like, thank you for doing this. Like, hey,
Yeah,
of
somebody's
course.
fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that's
missed that. Sorry,
awesome.
you froze for a second.
Oh, that's okay. I was just saying, yeah, it's probably amazing that they're like somebody's finally coming to help and like look into it. Maybe they're open minded.
Yeah,
So that's
but
awesome.
this is the thing: the people there were so nice, so welcoming. It was we were just treated so well. So I recommend anybody gets to go out to Colombia, go and visit the smaller country towns and stuff. It's incredible.
But before you do that, make sure that you go get your copy and go watch on Venmo, or it's not Venmo, on
Vimeo.
Vimeo, Phenomenology, and check out Vinny and his team's adventure down to Colombia. And are they going to see glimpses of the phenomena in the end of the series? Are we going to get to actually see the lights?
Yeah, you'll see it. And one thing that I before I forget is once this series has aired, we will be releasing raw footage into the public so that if anyone wants to analyze it, the more eyes on it and the more heads looking into it, the better. Anybody who wants
Awesome.
to help, it'll all be out there.
That's fantastic. So after the series is over, you're going to put a bunch of the raw stuff up for people to analyze and criticize, all open
Yeah,
source like that. That's amazing. And thank you, Lara, for the $5 in the super chat there. Appreciate it so much. Saying thanks, Carl, for highlighting this amazing project. I agree, Lara. It's so cool to see it expanding because I feel like the research that I'm doing here in southern Utah and what's going on up in the Uinta Basin around Skinwalker Ranch gets a lot of attention because of the TV shows and everything. But the truth is that this phenomena is something that is occurring all over the world in different locations. And as Vinny is one of the people at the forefront here doing similar things to what I am, trying to podcast to get the conversation out and to interview all the key players that are involved in this stuff, but then also go there yourself and see for yourself and capture it. It's so cool. I commend you, Vinny, for everything that you're doing, all of your work, and everybody here watching the show right now probably already knows you and loves you, and that's why they're here. But if you haven't watched Phenomenology yet, go get it and do it. I'm excited to do it. I'm going to rent the whole thing and watch it this weekend, and I cannot wait. So
episode 1 is free. Episode 1 is free. So if you like the vibe after that, go ahead and support and rent the rest. We tried to keep the costs as low as possible. We spent thousands and thousands of dollars on this project. We will not be making any profit, that's for sure. But there's a lot of costs involved. And I think one thing we as well I wanted to say about the series is that we didn't want to make a UFO documentary with all the big intense music and things like that. This is a very peaceful, beautifully made piece of filmmaking, in my opinion. I know that I may come across as biased, but we've got some amazing composers to write the score for it, people to work on the actual post-production color correcting and the way it looks. We had a vision in mind, and I think we pulled it off.
I think so too. Watching the trailer and watching everything that I've been able to see and watching the little bits of evidence that you've shown me behind the scenes, everybody's going to want to go get this. Everybody should go watch it. It's a huge piece of evidence. I'm going to be sending it to Brandon Fugel and telling him he needs to check it out and a bunch of stuff. So, yeah. And I'll put you in touch also with Paul Hynek.
Please do. Yeah. Fellow UAP Society member.
Yes. Yeah. UAP Society. They're in the chat as well. So, yeah, go check out. You're an NFT ambassador for them as well, right?
I am indeed.
That's us. So go check out the UAP Society. Vinny, anywhere that they should go check you out with your next show coming up, they go schedule and make sure and watch.
Yeah, so I've like I said, I've got quickly say I've got Bob McGuire coming up. I'm going to be speaking to my colleague at UAP Media UK, Graham Rendell again. Then Matthew Roberts, who was on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt back in 2015 during the gimbal incident, he's going to be coming on. And then I just spoke to Diana Pasolka today, and we have locked in an interview there. So I'm really looking forward to that one. So yeah, go over to my YouTube, my Instagram. Go to my Instagram. There's all my links there. You can then find everything in there. So go to that one spot.
Go check it out. Everybody go support Vinny and all his work so he can go out and keep making more seasons and documentaries. And so we can get him here to Utah and with maybe a film crew down here, and we could do something. That'd be awesome. So
hell yeah.
Vinny, thanks so much for your time. I want to come and hang out with you. We got to hook up at some point and work together other than on the
Yeah,
internet, man. It's got to
100%.
happen. It will. So I'll let you get to bed and have a good evening, my friend.
Oh, I'm not going to bed. I've actually got. I'm attending Diana Pasulka's lecture tonight at about 11 p.m. So
You are?
yeah,
Oh, you're not going to bed? Okay.
no, man.
You got more going on. Okay, well, we'll let you go and get ready for that. I appreciate you so much, Vinny. It's awesome. And we'll
My
have you
pleasure.
back on again and find out what you're up to next.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you,
Thanks,
Carl.
Vinny. Appreciate it.